1960s, Obote promoted cooperatives and the various parastatals that I have talked about. Unfortunately, his term in power ended in 1971 when Amin came to power and reversed Obote's policies. Amin expelled Asians in 72, as you are aware, and handed over their businesses to the native. The move led to long-ranging negative consequences for the economy. In 1980, Dr. Obote had another stint at power, returned through elections, but inherited an economy that was deep in crisis, physical infrastructure in complete ruins. From 1982 to 1984, Dr. Obote's government tried to implement the stabilization and structural adjustment programs, the famous SAPs, with financial and technical assistance from IMF and World Bank. However, the reforms failed. A series of economic failures led to Obote losing power. In 1986, which is the current period, to 2023, the NRM government has been in charge. It captured power under the leadership of General Yoweri Museveni and initiated far-reaching economic and political changes to launch the Economic Recovery Program. Of significance at that time, ladies and gentlemen, is that the export crops, the export industry had collapsed, and coffee was the only remaining. Indeed, in 1987, coffee was the only viable export commodity and accounted for 95% of export earnings. Tea and cotton had collapsed. They have recovered to some extent, but never to their former glories. The Coffee Marketing Board was a monopoly, very powerful, bureaucratic, but also mismanaged coffee earnings, which accelerated the decline. It is said at the time, the chairman of the Coffee Marketing Board was at equals with the governor of Bank of Uganda. At the time, due to frustrated, farmers uprooted coffee and replaced it with food crops, such as cassava and bananas. I'm interesting you to take a note at that landmark change. We see the emergence and growth of food crops in Uganda's policy landscapes and focus. In 1990, the export monopoly of Coffee Marketing Board was removed, permitting cooperative unions and private exporters access to export market. Again, the Coffee Marketing Board was split into two institutions, the Coffee Marketing Board Limited and the Uganda Coffee Development Authority. We see the birth of UCDA to separate regulatory and trading functions. The economic and political stability in the 90s led to increase in private investment and high economic growth. Poverty declined, but remained high, especially in rural areas, in particular northern Uganda. And first, with the high incidence of poverty, policy in the 1990s and 2000 focused on poverty reduction. You are very familiar to policies like the Poverty Eradication Action Plan of 2004 and 2007, which was the start. And in this, agriculture was selected because as priority. The sector was selected as priority because the sector employed 80% of the workforce, the majority of whom were poor. The PMA was a flagship program of PIP and focused on increasing incomes of subsistence farmers and household food security. The focus was on incomes of subsistence farmers and household food security. That occupied us in the 90s and 2000. In 2007, The government of Uganda, under the NRM leadership, took a momentous turn in policy direction. It shifted from the poverty reduction strategy papers of PEEP and adopted the Comprehensive National Development Planning Framework to guide development planning. The Comprehensive National Development Planning Framework promotes comprehensive and integrated development planning. This provided a long-term vision to focus consistency in policy for a 30-year vision and 6 medium-term national development plans. But of importance, Honorable Minister, the Vision 2040 is conceptualized around strengthening the fundamentals to harness the abundant opportunities around the country. And what were the fundamentals? The fundamentals were physical infrastructure that include energy, transport, water, ICT, human capital, science, technology, engineering, and innovations. And the opportunities were agriculture, tourism, minerals. What comes out strongly here is that provision of physical infrastructure was necessary for taking advantage of the opportunities of agriculture and other sectors. So, from that history, we have seen that there were policy shifts that impacted agriculture and defined the challenges and opportunities. We see a shift from food crops in pre-colonial to export crops to food crops again, and then opening up to broaden the area. So what are the opportunities? The opportunities available are a conducive and stable political and economic environment for investment. There is the existence of favorable legal and policy framework, the growth in stock and quality of public physical infrastructure, such as roads, that are key in enabling the thriving of agro-industrialization. The rise in population, the rise in incomes, and the growth in urbanization. And then the other point is market access. I decided to narrow down on the opportunities in terms of market access. I think that's the greatest opportunity in view of the other opportunities that have been offered. Taking the world market value, the world market value, this is measured in the import value, as a share, and the share of Uganda exports. So here we are looking at the world market value, for 2000, this is 2021, by the way. Sorry, I forgot to put it. This is for 2021. The figures were obtained from ITC trademark statistics. And it looks at the different commodities that we have. And what is the import value of those commodities, and how much have we taken as a country? Such that as we think about agro-industrialization, from which point are we anchoring? And I think the market is very important. Here, we see that coffee, the first table is in billions of dollars, is at 31.3. This was 2021, I emphasize. It has grown to around 36, I think. And Uganda exported at that time $515 million, accounting for 1.6% of the coffee import value. And then we see maize. Maize is 39.4 billion, and then we export around 112.4, and accounting for 0.29. Of significance to agro-industrialization is that maize exports are largely grain and to the East African region. And again, further, as we move into these crops, the structure of the global market for these commodities is that we see Europe moving towards fruits and vegetables. That's where the import growth is increasing. While developing world, especially sub-Saharan Africa, much of their imports are in staple food commodities, grains,